Well, good evening and welcome to the 2019 Australian Ultimate League Grand Final between the Sydney Suns and the Brisbane Breakers. We're coming to you live from Leichhardt Oval in Sydney, where we acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land that we meet on, the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, and pay respect to their elders past, present and emerging. And we've had a rainy 24 hours in Sydney, and there's a few clouds overhead, but there are more than enough stars on the fields tonight. My name is Sarah Crossy, and I'm joined by a special guest commentator, coach of the Perth Power this season, Max Howden.
Hi Sarah, it's a pleasure to be here tonight.
It's very exciting, isn't it? And I think we're in for another cracker final.
Yes, obviously I would have loved to have been involved in it myself as a coach. Perth obviously just narrowly missing out on being here tonight, but I couldn't ask for two more high quality teams to take us into the AUL second grand final ever.
Yeah, you mentioned the two quality teams. The big news in the past week has been the loss of some of the biggest stars from the Brisbane Breakers in Brett Matzuka, John McNaughton and Dom Simpson. Just how much that's going to take away from that beautiful offense and ferocious defense that we see from the Breakers remains to be seen, but your thoughts on that first up?
Absolutely. Well, obviously they're devastating losses. I mean, those players are of such high caliber, and I mean, you saw it on the stats board as much as you felt it, I guess, in terms of how when you watch them play, they were very dominated by, especially Brett and McNaughton and Matzuka. Those two were a real combo to be reckoned with, and I just think Dom Simpson's probably one of the most powerful throwers out there. But the people they brought in for those roles are just as exciting, I would say. And one thing that I think they've done a very good job of is deciding to bring in Brisbane locals to fill those roles. You know, consistency and connection is so important in a final such as this. There's a high pressure environment, and knowing what your teammates are going to do can make a real difference. So they're bringing in Leask and Cook and Zigman, who have all played with these players before. I think that's going to bode very well for them.
Yeah, I agree with you there, Max. I think they've made some smart strategic decisions, and I think they're going to gel into this team as well as you could expect. You brought up McNaughton and Matzuka being dominant, particularly in one of the lines of the Breakers. I have a stat here that between them, they had 27 assists, which is 37% of the total team assists. So wow. The big question mark that we've got here is who is going to now throw these goals. But let's look over to the Suns. They had a really dominant season. You have to say they didn't look under pressure at all from any team. They've got to be confident coming into this one.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, if we're looking at a comparison to Brisbane, certainly they've lost a lot of experience there. Sydney Suns, by comparison, the experience is just unbelievable with some of those players. You know, you're talking about absolute greats of the game in Regaki and Wentworth. You know.
And we see them walking onto the field at the moment.
Yeah, so the start of this game, we're going to see Sydney on defense up to the left of your screen. We're going to be playing 5 sets tonight, which is very exciting. The AUL regular season games, only 3 sets. This will be a best of 3. Sorry, first to 3, I should say. So we'll see if we go to a 5-set thriller or not. But as they bring up the Brisbane Breakers team list here, you can see I think what will be very interesting to see right off the bat is whether this younger Brisbane team can withstand some of the pressure. You know, Sydney has so much experience. It's not quite the same for that Brisbane team.
Well, Tom Regaki with the disc, and he's winding it up, number 42, sending it down the other end of the field, and we are underway in this grand final. As that ball,
it looks to have landed in bounds, but it's coming up, and Smith does not look happy to be having to take it from this position at this moment. So it's Meehan cutting out from the front. A beautiful inside pass. It waits perfectly for Meehan, and she has a deep receiver. She puts it in the air. Murphy's underneath it. It's a 2-on-1 situation. There's a big pack. And of course, Regaki, I don't know exactly how tall, but certainly the tallest player on the field tonight.
Yeah, unfortunate there from me, and she had Murphy streaming long. He just held up his cut, and she let that go. after that, I think Brisbane have to play that style of defence. They have to get themselves into power positions and take the good shots, but I don't think that was the best option on that play. And we see Sydney now with the disc, Wentworth in hand. She's going to have a punt, looking for her mate, Rosie Dawson. Oh, and a big defence there by Kat Smith. Takes a bit of a body blow. No call.
Yeah, did well to force Dawson, I suppose, underneath the disc. You know, Dawson is very, very fast. We know that about her, of course. And to force an aerial contest like that by Smith was very smart. We've got Grimman picking the disc up, has Cheng coming from the back of the stack. Doesn't see a lot of action upfield and now looks to the middle. Smith turns the corner and it ends up going to Parsons in the middle.
Yeah, Parsons to her rogue teammate, Mian, who's going to put that down to Braden Cheng. A nervous start for both teams, but Grimman now is cutting and hoping to put his team in advantage. Flicks it forward to Cheng.
Oh, such a beautiful silky pass. And speaking of, Murphy almost loses his feet, but we're off and racing in the AUL Grand Final and Brisbane draws first blood.
That is so important, I think, Max, for the Breakers to get on the board. I mean, they've got an uphill task before them, but they need to get sustained pressure on Sydney, and I think they've got to do it on the scoreboard, and they've got to do it with their legs on defence. So
absolutely.
And I think, you know, even if they lose this first set, as long as they're in it, I think that's enough to build from.
Don't count them out just yet, Crossy.
They're gone. They're 1-0 up. They're gone.
I think it's certainly interesting that they didn't hold a clean offense, that's for sure. But Sydney did not apply much pressure in reverse. I feel like if Sydney could have just punched one in there, we could have already been talking about this set being over. Instead, Brisbane weathers the storm as such, and now Sydney, the pressure is on them to really score commandingly.
Yeah, and you know, every single grand final loss you carry with you, and the Sydney Suns have the 2018 loss, some of them etched in their memory. I think they came into that game as favourites as well, and they just didn't come out of the blocks hard enough. So let's see if they can remedy that. They'd love to just walk this one down as Holly Reeve looks to her dump to Mark Evans.
Evans gets it across to the other Evans on the field. And a low pass to Alexander, but she rips one deep. It's Leisk versus, Ladamatos, who pulls it down. A lot of heavy body here. But it's Evans again with the disc, knocking on the door. Leisk is on the ground. And Sydney Suns are on the board. How about that?
They will love that. Look at Ladamatos. That's fired him up.
Absolutely.
Again, not a great option, I don't think, to throw to, and the execution wasn't quite there, but Ladamatos did the rest, bringing down a great grab and what should be a great contest, I think, between him and Leisk. Agreed.
They're still carrying a bit of bad blood, I would say, from the Nationals final this year, the men's final. Anyone who watched that would have seen this kind of body-on-body action. It was a very physical contest. And you'd have to say in that matchup, Leisk potentially got the better of Ladamatos, who would be he's a former Croc, and a very highly represented Australian player. And so it will be very interesting to see how that one plays out throughout the game.
Yes, indeed. As Regaki again puts up the pool. Let's see if he can land this one in. Looks like it's sailing out the back. Let's talk about conditions here, Max, because as I mentioned, it has been a 24-hour period of rain in Sydney. But we do have clear skies overhead at the moment.
And surprisingly still, there is a slight breeze sort of going left to right on your screen, but I don't think it will trouble any of the throwers on the field at the moment. And so it's Smith getting it across to Murphy to kick things off. Murphy sees his mammoth teammate in the middle, and we're back with Smith. Smith sees the inside shot to a very fast Braden Cheng.
I love it. That is Brisbane Breakers offense. That's how they need to run their offense if they're going to keep in this game and keep in front. It's great to see Kat Smith coming out of the blocks and firing long. I think she and Mian are absolutely critical to the success of this team tonight. I think her coaches have told her to release the shoulders, take what's given, and that's their offensive structure that you'd like to see, where they're moving it laterally, they're Their handlers are dynamic, but it's not this little give-and-go offense. It's they're looking for really penetrating dump throws and swings and taking the long shot when it's there. So good to see Kat Smith on the board.
Yes, and the Smith to Cheng connection is an interesting one, I would say, especially. I think Cheng has really integrated very well into this team, and Kat Smith absolutely loves to throw to him. We saw it quite a few times in regular season AUL. It's not the matchup, it's not the connection that you would expect to necessarily see, but it's actually been one that's gold for them. So I wouldn't be surprised to see it a few more times before the night's out tonight. It's a big mark from Sam McGuckin, but Evans has hucked it anyway to his boy, Alex Latamatos, who's now knocking on the door. It's a one-on-one in the end zone, but he's going to hold it up. And it's a goal to Evans.
Wow.
Very, very convincing from the Suns.
Yeah, look, that's twice that Latamatos has streamed downfield. I was going to have a throwback to that Nationals final between Mammoth and Colony that you were talking about previously. And I agree. I think Leask really got in Latamatos' head that game. And I think it's a big reason that Mammoth have walked away as national champions this year.
Agreed.
And he had a real trouble getting away from him at the dump position. And I think that's Leask's strength is, taking the unmarkable handler and marking them out of the game from the dump. And so very interesting to see that Latamatos already trying to make his way downfield.
But it's a long game. We've got potentially 5 sets up our sleeve tonight. And now that is an immaculate pull from Regaki. And it's the girls behind the disc, Meehan and Smith, those key handlers you talked about. Grimman now comes. They're still very deep in their own territory, but it gives them a lot of space to cut. Bit more of a poachy defensive set from the Suns coming down. And Brisbane just happy to move it around as the space starts to open up. Smith now with an under. She's got a streaming Murphy, and she has to throw that. Oh, but Mark Wee, very smart defense there. Came from the behind, poached, knew that Smith would want to throw to that Murphy connection. Read it well.
And Regaki doesn't need to be asked twice when he sees Rosie Dawson going long. She gets herself into position, but just bops out of her hand, and Meehan does enough for the turn.
Braden Cheng going deep there. Very disappointed he didn't get it. Might be scraps here for Smith. There's bodies flying everywhere. They can...
Oh, Braden Cheng is down.
Oh, dear. Oh, you can sense a bit of desperation starting to creep in now. We're 2-2 in the first set. As Cheng doesn't...
Let's hope he's okay. I think it might have been a bit of body contact.
Yes.
As that sailed over his head. He shakes it off. He's a semi-professional soccer player, so he'll be used to taking big hits, or at least pretending to. But he's back up on his legs, which is good to see, as Kat Smith wastes no time in pumping it for Grimman. And my goodness, he can dive for them. That one just too far in front.
Grimman has to be one of the most exciting players in the air in Australia, maybe the world. Just the Halibut final this year, there's some amazing footage of him doing things that should not be physically possible with the human body.
Sydney bring it in. They're playing from a horizontal stack. And again, Regaki launches it, looking for Kaiawea. The 19-year-old catches it outside the end zone. Passes it off to Dawson. And we'll see if Sydney can slot this one back in to take the lead at 3-2. But Brisbane doing a good job.
Oh, and well read by Cheng at the front of the stack. And Brisbane's going to get another chance.
It's just getting a bit scrappy now. It's looking like a Div 3 final here. We'll see if they can clean it up, and Tom Regaki sees Dave Andrews and punches it in for the score.
Yes, Regaki's first assist of the game, and I'm sure will not be his last. Regaki, of course, in the regular season AUL, more assists than the next 2 highest assist getters, which were Evans and Latamatos combined. A whopping 28, which is just, phenomenal. But second goal for Dave Andrews as well. We haven't talked much about young Andrews yet. Certainly one of the people with the least experience, but so much potential. The younger brother of Rob Andrews, of course, who's Australian representative multiple times now. And a very exciting player, athletic, and just a hunger for the disc in the end zone. You can't resist throwing to Dave Andrews when you see him in that space.
Yeah, he was impressive this season, Dave Andrews, and I think, you know, there were some question marks over the Suns. They lost a lot of big names, Mike Niels, Tom Tullett, Peter Blakely, Rob Andrews. How are they going to fill those gaps? And they've done it with youth, but those guys have really been, they haven't just been participating on the field, they've really been contributing as Leask unloads, shows what he's got, putting it out to McGuckin, but it was all to do. He didn't really have the field position. It's a lovely throw, but again, probably just to a contest that was a little too tight.
Yeah, tough. This is the first time we've seen this Brisbane line on offense, and that was a bit of a shaky start for them. So it's Evans who gets the disc back, finds Ladamatos in the middle of the field. Doesn't see much that he likes. And so it's back to M. Evans. The Sydney Suns, there's not a lot of movement upfield.
Oh, I thought he could have had a bit of that one, Lees, but it's Ladamatos unwinding, looking for Holly Reeve, who's gone downfield. She's in acres of space. She's about a metre outside the end zone as she offloads it to Ash Evans. And he's going to give the stat to Danny Alexander for the score. Well, the Sydney handlers showing that they're not going to be stuck in the dump position either all night. That's Holly Reeve making a lovely cut downfield. And I think marked by Rosa Wang there, who is a very good defender.
Yeah.
So that's a nice move by Sydney. They're showing all their wares at the moment.
Yeah, and the composure behind the disc from Evans and Ladamatos there, pretty good. There was not a lot happening upfield. In the couple of times they just chipped it back between each other, very happy to do so, until that wonderful cut from Reeve opened up. But you thought maybe Leask is very active on the mark there with Ladamatos earlier, and then you thought he maybe had a sniff there at that block in the dump space, and a block in that area could have changed that from 4-2 to 3-all. So.
Oh, is this pull going to come in? It is, my goodness.
Wow. They're playing a high-risk strategy with this pull, but it's working for them. Grimmond, mostly unmarked here.
There goes Rachel Parsons, and we're going to see Parsons matched up against her rogue teammate, Weir, and she brings that down with some beautiful body position, wastes no time with a sensational forehand IO, and Lachlan Murphy does the rest.
Oh, wonderful throw there from Parsons. Knew exactly the range of Murphy. And those are the connections we were talking about, you know, Crossy, in the game beforehand. Tam Davis talking a lot about how important connections were for the Brisbane Breakers team. And that's one that you see just there that I'm sure we'll see multiple times again.
Yeah, wow. Rachel Parsons, way to make a play. I was a little bit nervous for Brisbane. If they went down another point there, you could probably kiss this set goodbye, but they have kept themselves in it with some great individual play from Rachel Parsons. She was fantastic for them all season. And it's good to see her continuing that on with 8 goals and 8 blocks in the regular season.
Wow. That block number is just, it's immense, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think a couple of them may have come against one number 28, Rosie Dawson.
Yes, that was one of the most exciting matchups, and it's a shame we haven't seen it yet tonight, but I will admit the Weir and Parsons matchup is also a very, very juicy one.
Yeah.
So Brisbane managed to get it in. It's Reeve centering it to Evans. Evans again. This time they're backing them a little bit. Don't want the Sydney Suns to get away with a one-pass killer again. Reeve centers it. Holster's a big one. Sends it very wide to Perkins, who puts one up. There's a few people in the area.
Yeah, McGuckin's all day, but I think Holly Reeve is down off the back of that one. or is it Danny Alexander?
Believe it's
yeah,
Alexander.
It's Alexander. Yeah, I think just taking a hit to the head as she indicates there. Yeah, that one just having too much float. She was putting it down the line to Alexander, but it just sat up. And there is a little bit of a wind, and maybe that lip of that disc just taking a little bit of that and sailing over the head of Alexander and into the waiting arms of McGuckin.
And certainly, with this oval is now starting to develop a bit of storied ultimate history. A few AUL finals, also Test match between Australia and Japan. A few high-profile games at this field now, and it's a bit unpredictable once the disc goes above a certain height here. Just that the stadium feel can cause a little bit of chaos as Brisbane starts to work it up. This is a crucial one for them to score here.
Is another beautiful throw from Leask.
Yeah, Leask
to his newly imported Mammoth teammate Cook, who dishes off to the other new import on the team, Ziegman. Well, it's Latamatas putting a lot of pressure on this time, but Brisbane are going to come through. Kat Smith catching the goal, only her second for the AUL season. And we are tied up here, Max Howden, at 4 apiece. We are approaching the 2-minute warning here to go. Just give us a reminder what happens here in terms of the outcome of this set.
Yeah, well, this starts to get crucial now. So in terms of if time cap goes and the score is within 1 or even, they'll finish the point. If at the end of that point that there's no winner, they'll play a point after that. So yeah, time starts to become very much of the essence here. If you're Sydney, you got a few options. I think you have to play your own game, obviously, but you don't want to give the other team too much of a look in to potentially, if this point goes for a long time, it could be the last point of the set.
Yeah, well, let's hope it's not. Let's hope the quality really picks up here, and Sydney certainly will be hoping to punch this one in as the disc moves out to Mark Wee on the sideline.
Oh, Wee a huge fake. Wee to Wee. Andrews calmly in the field as always.
Sydney moving into a more vertical stack. Wee's going to take that out of the arms of Wentworth. Whoa! Oh. Gee, it's a goal. Kaya Weir with immense pressure from the 19-year-old. It's 19-year-old versus 19-year-old there on her shoulder from Ava Muller, but she hangs on.
Yes, 2 Blue Bottles teammates. Of course, disclaimer, I was a coach of the team that most recently went to Heidelberg, Germany. Those two absolutely crucial players for us in that team, and God, they know each other so well. You see their step for step in that cut.
Yeah.
And Mueller is so close to the block, but Weir is just too strong. They both get up with huge smiles on their faces, of course.
That's another matchup that I was looking forward to seeing tonight. The 2 youngsters on each other. So it's good to get a bit of a flavour on that as well. But it's now 5-4 to Sydney, excuse me, and Sydney have put themselves in the box seat here with 33 seconds to go.
Yep.
So Brisbane will need to score this to keep this set alive.
Yes. So, yeah, time sort of moves away from being a factor at this point, you'd say. It's just about whether Sydney can score 1 or Brisbane can score 2.
Now, if Brisbane scores here and we go to 5-all, time cap's gone. It's just game to 6 at this point. It's game to 6. Well, they've first got to work it up the other end as Leask puts it off to Cook and swings it out to Kat Smith. That is time cap going. And wow, Kat Smith, she had 2 looks at Leask is coming through. I think he's going to grab it in the end. And Rosa Wang, he's got a choice. And he's going to hit McGuckin. Wow.
And here we are, Crossy, in the very first set.
Yes.
We're going down to the wire as close as it gets.
Oh, it's what the people want. And that's good to see. And I love this play from Brisbane. Yeah, it's on the riskier side, but I think that's exactly the game that they needed to pull out. I was a bit worried for Kat Smith on that one. She pulled back on the first attempt, which I thought was on, and then shaped again for the second and went for it. And Leask doing the hard yards, which every coach loves to see when you've got your player running down the disc, even though it's not thrown for them. And so we are into a do-or-die situation here for the first set. 5 apiece. Sydney's going to start on offense. Whoever scores this takes the set. Absolutely.
Be interesting to see, I guess. Brisbane at this point haven't, there's no line changes for either team at this point. Both have been running with the same sets that they have been all game. I think it's fair enough. It's pretty hard to bring together a team like this and try and play lines which change often. We'd be very surprised to see many variations on this, but it's a crucial point. There's a set on the line.
Now here we go, Evans to Evans. We've heard that connection quite a few times already. And Sydney have worked themselves into a horizontal stack. Holly Reeve with a big in-cut. And she does well to pick that one up from her ankles.
Yeah, it looked like Grimman maybe even got a fingertip to it out of the hands of Evans.
Sarah Perkins offers long, but Evans thinks the better of it. Pass off to Holly Reeve. She's directing traffic.
And the nervousness is increasing on the field here. All these backwards passes has to start to bring a bit of pressure on the Suns. They're marching it up, but slowly, and there it is, the release valve.
Danny Alexander! What a superstar! She flings that disc away. She's extremely happy about that one.
Oh,
Brayden
yes.
Cheng was breathing down her neck, speeding in for the help D, but she holds her nerve, holds her position, and grabs that first set for Sydney.
Wow, and a fired up Alexander is not what the Brisbane Breakers want at this point. But that is a fantastic grab, and that is the kind of elite finish that we would have hoped for this set. Great, so we'll be back with you for the second set down here in Leichhardt Oval in just a minute. Welcome back to Leichhardt Oval here for the second set of the AUL Grand Final for 2019. Wow, what a game we've had so far, Crossy.
Yeah, it's living up to the hype, probably exceeding it, to be honest. I think Sydney came in here as probably raging hot favourites, particularly with those losses of personnel from Brisbane, and it's great to see that they were right in the contest. And I said it early on, I think at 1-0 up, that they needed to be in the contest.
Absolutely.
And I think they've done enough to set this up very nicely for themselves for the next couple of sets.
Completely agree. And it's Smith with a pull. The pulls tonight have been very, very good. Another one landing so close to the sideline. And it's Reeve who'll start with the disc. She sees a couple of options, finally finds Evans upfield. Big undercut coming to Alexander, the hero of the first set for the Suns.
Ooh, she puts an ambitious throw out into some crowd, but Ash Evans there to cover it up, but then he's thrown that right behind Holly Reeve, and
it's Zigman who I think cleaned it up.
Brisbane looking to march it down the field and take the first points of the set. As Kat Smith throws that beautiful IO break forehand and streams down herself.
Evans almost had a sniff there. And it's Wang with the disc. She goes back on Alexander's mark. Oh, and an immaculate break throw there from Wang, but there's a pick which will hold up plate. Those release points from Wang, I just absolutely love them. We're back on now. McGuckin, they're on their reverse brick. They're knocking on the door.
He's pulled out the hammer. Kat Smith, she takes her second goal of the night and puts Brisbane exactly where they wanted to be at the start of this first set.
And that is massive. That is a break straight off the bat for the Breakers. Wow. And look, you have to say, we talked a little bit about it, Crossy. You mentioned that when they're looking fluid and relaxed, that is when the Breakers look like they're playing their best offense. And, I mean, it doesn't get much better than that. Just a lazy hammer over the top to a receiver in an acre of space.
Yeah, that's some really nice play, and good to see Brisbane hold their nerve. And look, nobody, I think none of the AUL fans out there would have liked to have seen Matsuka not in this game. But to some extent, with 154 completions, the most of any player across the AUL, I think he's a very busy player in and around the disc, and I think that disrupts defences, but it can also disrupt your downfield flow a little bit. And maybe his absence here,
it's opening up some new options for the Breakers.
Opening up some new options, yeah.
Couldn't agree more. And now Ragaki with the disc. He's got that deep shot cocked.
My goodness, he didn't take it. That's what I'm shocked about. Whoa, Rachel Parsons peels off, but Mark Wee still gets there in time.
Very smart read there from Parsons, but Wee managed to still grab it. It's now Andrews with the disc, finds Dawson. Be very happy to give it back to Ragaki.
And puts it out to Mark Wee for the score.
Mark Wee there, we caught him listening to some Ariana Grande to pump himself up before this game, and look, it's obviously worked for him, Sarah.
But lovely patient offense there from Sydney, and I think that's what they've done well all season. I think a lot of teams would categorise them as just looking for the long throw. Speaking to Kylie O'Brien before the game, she said that's exactly what we want them to think, and right there, they just march that up the field. They're happy to take their dump options. They're happy to use the width of the field, and executing perfectly there. And particularly in a time of ultimate where fast tempo, quick release disc is all the rage. It's good to see a team who is happy to set their own pace, happy to take patient options. They clearly don't have a let's dump it on two mentality. They're happy to let cuts open up.
Completely agree. Although one thing I point out from that point, that Parsons attempted that poach block, that is what she is so good at. That's one reason why you saw her get so many blocks in the AUL regular season, was just that ability to hunt a block where there previously seemed to be none. So I'll be very interested to see if we see that again. Yeah,
she's a special player, Rachel Parsons. And good to see her being showcased in this format of the game. Sydney set a zone for the first time.
Yeah, and just a pull disruptor, really. They're not putting a lot of pressure necessarily around it. They've got a little bit of time. But and Brisbane just trying to work their way through it. But
yeah, I like this look from Sydney. It's Holly Reeve! Oh, fantastic. I like it a lot. They probably like it a little bit more now as well, if they find themselves 5 or 10 metres outside the end zone. And Latamatos, with a little bit of a flick of the wrist, catches that one over Leask.
Oh, and he looks delighted and shouts out his teammate Holly Reeve with, I would say, a block out of nothing. If we're talking about blocks out of nothing, read so well. Like I said, the defense looked so static. Brisbane was seeing exactly the same thing I was seeing, and Holly Reeve decided differently.
Yeah, great individual play, and look at that. Takes it out of Cook's hands.
Oh, jeez, it's an immaculate block. It's such a smart block, and it's crazy to think how young Reeve is. you know, obviously so much international experience already, but she's still just got such a bright and exciting career ahead of her. But to be getting smart blocks like that you'd associate with players who've been playing for, 10 or more years, I think that just is so exciting for what's next for her.
Yeah, look, I think also 19, we talk a lot about Ava Muller and Kaya Weir, but she also has not yet cracked the 20 as that pull, I think it just hit the line. No, they're calling it good. Wow. Rachel Parsons has a shot. That was always going to be Dave Andrews out of the hand.
Yes, unfortunate that Grimond definitely gave the signal to Huckett. And we're going the other end of the park straight away.
Grimond pushes off.
Jeez.
Oh, gee.
There was a lot going on there. A little bit too much for Evans. Andrews rather. Maybe swindled out of a foul call. But look, both players are happy to abide, and the game will continue.
Well, not much happening for Brisbane, but they really need to settle themselves and score this point as he puts it deep to Rachel Parsons. But just not far out in front for her, especially when marched by Kaya Weir.
That matchup, we've now seen it's 1-1 now for Weir and Parsons, and I think Weir just in the end a very good read, managed to just make Parsons think a second time about it, and it was enough to get the block.
Well, you feel like this is turning into a pivotal point now in this set, even though we're still in the first half. Sydney get this one, there's been a call, we're going to bring it back, but if Sydney get this one, they're up 3-1.
Yeah,
and if Brisbane can square it up, then all is forgiven. But
this could be Sydney's third point in a row, of course, with Brisbane scoring that break straight out of the set. So
if it affected you or not, it's up to you. I've called the foul, so it's probably fine there, guys. I don't think it affected, but it's up to you.
Just listening in the discussion about where the disc is going to come in, and it's going to come back in with Rosie Dawson.
No easy reset. No easy reset.
As it just comes back in on that far sideline, Dawson finds Regaki.
Oh, he's put it long to Sarah Wentworth. She does beautifully to keep Lachlan Murphy out of the action.
Yeah, just such an unbelievable run. Obviously, just that speed, but the ability to change direction in those last couple of seconds to keep someone like Murphy, who very fast, very tall, just completely a non-factor in the end, and Wentworth just runs onto it.
Yeah, it's unfair for the rest of us mere mortals to watch the ageless Sarah Wentworth play. There was talk of a calf niggle coming into the week, but no sign of any problems there.
No, and the combined age of those two players, 87.
Yes.
Phenomenal. If you added up everyone on Brisbane's on the line, you probably could barely get to 87. So
yeah, do you know what? The oldest player there is 28.
Wow.
Rebecca Ziegman. I've never felt so old in my life right now. As Mark Evans puts up the pull.
It's going to be.
Yeah, Brisbane have to stop the rot here. They really need a solid offensive point as Kat Smith cuts up the line.
And now it's Cook and Leask playing the roles of Evans and Ladamados, chipping it back between each other as they find Wang upfield. Wang gets it back to the middle. Brisbane, you have to say, they're holding their options a little bit.
Big shot to Leask from Cook. Well, that is something special. He was about 5 metres outside of his own end zone, and he has unleashed that to his teammate.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about the importance of connections, and yeah, that is, they'll be very, Brisbane, the Yuang and Tam Davis will be very happy with their choices of bringing those two into the side with that particular throw. Now, I have to say there, Crossy, obviously an amazing throw, phenomenal connection, and a really great option in the end in terms of the space. But you did have a sense that Brisbane was holstering a few upfield options that normally you'd see them taking. That break inside shot to Smith, another upfield pass to Becca Ziegman rather. It is a little bit of a worry for the sustainability of that offense as it goes forward. that they're already hitting a few options that I would say, although they're preferred connections, potentially not going to be there the whole game.
Yeah, I mean, that's not the greatest pull in the world that you're going to see. But, yeah, and also a change to their lineup. I don't know if that's the first time they've changed it up, and maybe it came out of the back of that run from Sydney. But, yeah, I thought they had some nice connections going in that first set. So if I'm Brisbane, I'm wanting to revert back to those original lines. But we'll see how this defensive set plays out for them, with Ragaki taking the disc and Sydney setting up from a horizontal start. 3 handlers back with Mark Wee punching it down to Tom Ragaki. A big bid there by Cook.
Oh, and into traffic, but it's a very nice pass in the end.
Yeah, and if you're going into traffic, why not give it to Sarah Wentworth?
True.
I've been there myself.
Yes, we've really seen now the trifecta of Wentworth and Alexander. Just in that end zone space, they're so dominant. Ugh. Anyway, and Dawson as well, of course, was the third one that I was trying to find in that triumvirate. But Grimond has such a difficult assignment on Ragaki. You know, that wingspan. You'd say if there's anyone in Australian Ultimate who would have a chance at getting a little Weasley block in those spaces, you'd think it would be Grimond, and yet still. He can't get those arms into that space. If you can get it to Ragaki in that width, there's just nothing you can do about it as a defender.
Yeah, look, and Ragaki's play is really pivotal to the outcome of this match. We talked about that he had 28 assists. He also led the league in throwaways at 16.
Oof.
So, you know, live by the sword, die by the sword. But, you know, he looks like he's on form tonight. Which is not good news for Brisbane. We'll see if he can maintain that as Rosa Wang lifts her hand and cuts deep. And Lee will hit her on the return. She's such a hard-working player, Rosa Wang. Just a workhorse, someone that every coach would love to have in their team. And Sydney have set this zone again. Let's see if Brisbane can handle it better than they did the last point.
Oh. Sends one back. It's like a game of tennis now, playing between the two sides of the field.
Kat Smith unleashes a hammer to Ziegman. It's going to hang in the air for Mark Evans to pull down. You talked about this gusty breeze up high. I'm not sure that really affected the outcome in the end, but it as Evans puts it to Ladamatos.
Not the prettiest throw, but it'll work. And now Ladamatos knocking on the door.
Casual grab from Mark Evans. But I think, you know, that's the way Sydney love to play. They're a very confident team, and that pressure that we talked about that was critical for Brisbane to keep on them is just starting to slide away a little bit now. Yeah. And regardless of the outcome of this set, I think, again, Brisbane need to step up and get some pressure back on the scoreboard. If not for the outcome of this set, then the outcome of the game. And I don't know if we've mentioned already, Max, that this is a game of 5 sets. So unlike previous AUL rounds where it was best of 3, we are doing best of 5. It's like the Grand Slam.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, Brisbane, they're really still struggling with that Sydney zone. And so very canny move by the Sydney coaches to apply pressure in that way, making Brisbane think twice, and it's paid dividends a couple of times now in this set. It's Murphy finds Mueller. Beautiful head fake there to get it across to Meehan.
Meehan's been quiet tonight. And she's got not many options as Grimond helps her out with an undercut.
The entire field cut deep there when Grimond received the disc.
Whoa! Braden Cheng feels the pressure of Wee and goes up a little early, you think.
Yeah, they're definitely, the Brisbane receivers have definitely been feeling the pressure of those Sydney players on their backs. A little bit less so than Sydney. Sydney we've seen take some very good contested grabs. Brisbane has been struggling a little bit in that area.
Yeah, and the statistics speak throughout the season, with the Sydney Suns having only 10 drops across the season through all the rounds. I mean, that speaks to the calibre of the throwers, as we see again. Speaking of calibre of throwers, Tom Rogacki unleashes one to Rosie Dawson. Meters outside the end zone. Rachel Parsons on her. Oh, and a darting forehand by Mark Wee. Handled nicely in the end by Dave Andrews, and Sydney really in the box seat now at 6-2 up in this second set.
Now, I know we were talking to Kylie O'Brien before this game about what good Sydney Suns offense looked like, that it was really important for them to be using both sides of the field, that they weren't just a hucking team. But it's hard when you can just huck it like that. Up 1/16 of the field in a tiny window that only a thrower like Rogacki can hit and only a receiver like Dawson can get to. It's hard when you're Brisbane to stop something like that.
Yeah, it's just rude, really, is what it is. And interestingly enough, Rosie Dawson doesn't often motor deep, and we didn't see her doing it a lot in the AUL round games, but she's certainly got it on tonight. Maybe she's had the tap on the shoulder by Rogacki, but she is a potent target to hit with her speed, and Rachel Parsons unable to replicate some of those massive defensive plays that we saw her make in the earlier meeting of these two teams. Brisbane now all to do at 6-2 down, and just about 2.5 minutes remaining in this set.
Yeah, you can't help but think this set is beyond them, but definitely we'll be looking to steady the ship here, because we've still got up to 3 sets coming, and they'll need to step up in those sets if they want to win.
Wines looking for McGuckin. Oh, he can't hang on.
Flash of white from behind from Perkins did just enough to dissuade McGuckin from catching that disc.
Yeah, and when it's all going against you, it's all going against you. McGuckin makes a play.
And I mean, you'd expect McGuckin, one of the great receivers in Australian Ultimate at the moment, to pull that down most days of the week. So it certainly tells a little bit about how the fortunes of the Brisbane Breakers have gone in this set.
Yeah, he was their highest goal scorer at 15 goals throughout the season. As Mark Evans cuts up the line, and an uncharacteristic throw from him.
And McGuckin fired up there. He definitely put enough pressure on that mark. And yeah, I mean, if we talked about not wanting to fire up Danny Alexander, not wanting to fire up Sam McGuckin is an equally big worry for the Sydney Suns.
Well, there we go, Cook. He says, Mark Wee, I saw you do it. I'm going to see you one as well, as McGuckin holds on to that one. And it's 6-3 now to Sydney. You have to think if they've got any shot at this set, they need a quick D and a quick score. Yeah,
I would say it's beyond the laws of time and physics at this point for them to pull it out. It'll be interesting to see how Sydney reacts to it, but certainly that is a good sign for the Breakers. To obviously not a solid passage of play, but like I said, getting McGuckin fired up, he's their largest goal scorer. He's the kind of person, the energy could turn this team around.
Yeah, energy is the word there, and it's where this format has its advantages but also its challenges. There's no time out, so you'd have to think in a standard game when your team has had a run of 2 or 3, that's usually the coach's prerogative to call a timeout and reset the situation, but that's not available to Ewing and Tam Davis tonight in this format. As Rosie Dawson looks for Rogacki up the line. Centres it to Mark Wee. Sydney still running hard.
As the clock ticks down, just a few seconds left in this set, and that's the siren. They'll throw one more pass. Players on the field.
And that'll be it. It's one more after the siren if they're outside of that 2 points. And that's a very strong set from Sydney. That's a bit of a statement as the rain starts to come down here at Leichhardt Oval. but certainly Kylie O'Brien and Owen Shepherd will be very happy with their charges. A very strong set indeed from Sydney.
But folks, it's not over. This could be a 5-set thriller today at Leichhardt Oval. It's 2-0 to Sydney. We'll take a 10-minute break now, and we will be back with the third set of the AUL Grand Final in 2019. Welcome back to Leichhardt Oval for the third set of the AUL Grand Final 2019. I'm Max Howland. I'm joined in the commentary booth tonight by Sarah Crossy. And this is it, Crossy. These next 3 sets, it's do or die for the Brisbane Breakers.
It sure is, and it starts with this first one. And if I don't get it, it's game over. And last year's finalists, the Sydney Suns, will finally have redemption and their hands on the trophy as it's brought out to the centre as we speak.
Wow, and we've barely had time to talk about some of the history of this game. Both teams have a player who won the AUL Grand Final last year. Of course, Brisbane Breakers with Rosa Wang, who moved from the Flames, and Tom Regacki from the Flames moved over to the Suns. And
yes,
very happy to be here again in the final without his Flames teammates this time.
And we've also got 2 coaches who were here last time in Kylie O'Brien and Yu Wang on the losing side with the Sydney Suns, both looking to pick up their first AUL title as well. But let's hope that this one's going to go the distance because it had so much promise in the first set, and Sydney really came out very dominantly in that second set to take it to a 2-0 lead.
And what were you hearing in the sheds during that set break, Sarah?
Yeah, Kylie O'Brien and Owen Shepherd both saying they were disappointed with Sydney's performance in that first set. In the second set, they really thought they got back to the game plan as Tom Regacki finally pulls one out. That one's not coming back in. So that's a bit of a gift for the Breakers at the start of the set. But
and trips over on the way down on the replay. Maybe explains we'll be adding that one to the AUL bloopers highlight reel at the end of this season, of course. Stay tuned for that.
They were surprised at the effectiveness of that zone that we talked about. But yeah, very happy with their charges as Lara Min unleashes to Rachel Parsons. Oh! Kaya Weir, she looked all out of that picture. Rachel Parsons, you'd bet that she had that done and dusted.
And what an unbelievable block there from Kaya Weir. Just stunning to be able to get up like that. Parsons, you thought, was in the exact right position.
Yeah.
And Weir just elevates and gets the touch.
Rachel Parsons working for the New South Wales Department of Planning. She did all the planning that she could on that one, but couldn't bring it in. As Sydney now looking to start where they left off that second set. Kaya putting it to Rosie Dawson.
And high stall count now, but manages to get it off.
Dave Andrews going long. Braden Cheng following up. Oh!
Oh, wow.
Jeez!
Slips through the fingers of Andrews.
Oh, a little high five to each other. That was, the luck looked to be all with Sydney, but it came off as Ava Muller wastes no time hitting a streaking Liam Grimmond.
Not a lot of options for Grimmin. Gets it over to Parsons.
Oh, there's a travel call on the throw. Oh, that's heartbreaking, that is.
And we are on Mueller with the travel call. Be very interesting to hear how those two very good friends discuss that call after the game tonight.
Oh, did she call it? Surely it wasn't Ragaki from Dunn calling it.
Look, we can't be 100% sure. Ragaki, for anyone who's a bit experienced in Australian Ultimate, has probably had Tom Ragaki call travel on them before. You haven't made it in Australian Ultimate until it's happened. So if it was indeed Ragaki, then Mueller joins a very elite club.
That's a shame for the Brisbane Breakers and a shame for Muller, because that was a beautiful put and showcases a little what she can do. As she'll bring it back in a very tight and close Breakers stack. As it just comes back in.
Now it's off to Murphy. Me in an acre of space. Dawson's giving her quite a lot of room to play with. Dawson looking for that classic poach block in the lane. Sticks with her this time. A lot of deep space that Murphy's in now. It's not seen though.
Meehan doing a lot of work, coming back and then down the field again. She finds herself open at the dump.
Brisbane's still not looking settled in this offense. Throwing a lot more passes this point than we've seen in previous points. But that could be good for them as it goes across to Parsons, who completely unmarked still. And Grimmin just calling every shot.
Oh, great grab, Ava Muller. After a nice, hard, deep cut that she came under on. And once again, Weir and Muller are matched up. Brisbane keeping patient at this stage.
Sydney, hard to tell if deliberately poaching or just gassed from a very long point.
Oh, Liam Grimmin! Stop it! That is an amazing grab. I was just about to start the wind-up for the turn, saying what a travesty that's gone over his head, but you talked about his ability, Max Howden.
And Liam Grimmin once again breaks the laws of physics to grab that goal and to put Brisbane on the board in the very first point of this third and crucial set, Sarah.
Well, it's what the crowd wants. They want them to get up. Even though they're a Sydney crowd, they want to see a little bit more action, and I think we all want to see a little bit more action of that as we have another look on a left grab. Fading away. He's pumped up about it. Let's hope that it ignites his Brisbane teammates. And when I talked to Tam Davis, the coach, at the beginning of the game, she said she wanted her players to play with exuberance, with confidence, but not foolhardiness.
Oh, and that is Liam Grimmin in a nutshell, isn't it?
And to bring the joy. And you felt like they really lost that in their second set. But let's hope that that play breathes some life into this Brisbane Breakers team. As Sydney very patiently at the moment working it down the field.
Yeah, Sydney definitely in a groove with Evans at the disc. Latamatos going deep, a trust throw.
Wow, this time Leask gets the spoils.
And you have to think Latamatos is calling for that one deep, but it seemed even to me to not really be a believable call. He was just trying to distract a bit of attention. But Evans interpreted it differently, and it's given Brisbane a chance to potentially go 2-0 up in this third set.
Lovely penetrating throw there by Leask, and gets it back. Brisbane at the halfway mark. Gee, they'd love this one to take it 2 up. You feel like they've just got to settle the ship now. As Leask points for it, Ziegman answers, and it's 2-0, ladies and gentlemen. We have a live one here. It's exactly what they needed to do, and that was all Leask's point there from the D at the far end to controlling it down through the middle of the field and eventually scoring. Well done, Alex Leask, and well done to the Brisbane Breakers.
Yes, Ziegman getting her first stat of the AUL final, indeed of the AUL in 2019. Of course, played with the Brisbane Breakers last season in 2018, but that will give her a lot of confidence as they go into this game for the whole team. And it certainly looks like they're playing with a bit more swag out there now, doesn't it, Sarah?
Yes, it's good to see their shoulders have unleashed a bit. They know it's all on the line. They've got nothing to lose except a big trophy and lots of accolades.
Absolutely. Prize money coming next season, of course, for the AUL. As it centres to Regaki. Got Weir going deep, but Mueller does a very good job of bracking her, sending her back under. Weir now surveys her options and finds Dawson.
And here goes Wentworth deep, but Dawson, I said, putting it into the trusted hands of Regaki. Finds the way to Winky now. And they've done that 100 times in the national season just gone. Wentworth to Dawson. That's a score. That steadies the ship for Sydney at 2-1.
And you saw Brisbane there, I mean, very wisely. They've been beaten a couple of times deep. Those just amazingly dominant female receivers. Sending them a little bit under, but just the transition in the end zone area wasn't quite quick enough from those defensive players from Brisbane. Needed to manage to shut that front corner off once we got into that last third. And I'm sure Ewing and Davis will be a bit disappointed they couldn't apply a bit more pressure on that point.
Yes, indeed. And Davis has a bit of family history at this stadium. I was talking to her before the game. She said her great uncle, Jack Hampstead, played professional football for Balmain back in the day, and this was his home ground. He came away with the Rugby League Grand Final in 1944 and 46. So hoping to replicate a little bit of family history is Professor Davis tonight. Great to hear that little gem of history there.
Absolutely love that. Trying to bring the home ground advantage where there was none before. And Sydney brings that zone back that has been so devastating for Brisbane tonight. Have they finally worked it out? Leeskin Cook looking pretty calm. Cook's fake is not really selling anybody as they find that inside channel to McGuckin.
McGuckin wisely holds off, throwing that long to Rosa Wang.
Now a little bit of confidence here. Smith with the disc. Transition is on. It's slow to get there though. And looks like Brisbane could take advantage.
And here we go, Alex Leask.
Gets in the end zone.
Gets a score. They finally overcome that zone, which we commented on before. It didn't look to be the most onerous. So it's good to see them. They've got really good body language at the moment, Brisbane. They're looking very positive.
And Crossy, look, it's so interesting because in the AUL regular season, this was the story of the Sydney Suns over and over again.
Yeah,
they went through undefeated, which was, an amazing achievement. But there was only one game which they could win 3-0.
Which game was that, Max?
Which game they win 3-0?
Yeah.
I can't remember the opposition. Are you talking about the one that...
Did they get overpowered? Is that what happened?
We were maybe overpowered. But it's so interesting that Sydney just struggles to close games. They can't bring this focus in the third set, and I think we're seeing a bit of that again. That score in the end was just way too easy for the Brisbane Breakers.
Yeah, well, the third set. It's a bit of a bogey for the Sydney Suns. We'll have to see. We've got about 9 minutes and 48 seconds to find out if that's the case. Sydney now looking to get a score in with Dave Andrews on the disc.
Oh, and Andrews looks another one off. He still doesn't have a mark on. We've got Meehan upfield on Andrews.
Yeah, you have to think that's not the matchup that Brisbane want.
But they may be deliberately courting it at the moment with Braden on Dawson, trying to shut down that speed that's been so devastating. Dawson's still running Cheng over the park, but not rewarded this time. The disc goes up.
There we go. Braden Cheng comes through well. What do I know indeed? That is a master stroke from Brisbane.
Wow, fantastic find there. And Cheng does exactly what he was asked to do, and that is find a block.
Oh, and speaking of finding blocks, Rosie Dawson reads the disc perfectly. And now she's going to go for the double happiness as she gets the score too. Oh, that's painful for Brisbane. They executed their plan. They got the D, and then just Ava Moller throwing it into an expectant Dawson. She's so good at that, so good at reading the play and taking the risk of peeling off her player to make a big play. And
wow, I don't watch a lot of poker, Crossy, but you sense that Brisbane there thought they had the best hand on the table, pushed all in, and indeed got a reward, but then Dawson just flips over pocket aces and Brisbane just can't believe it, you know? That seemed like the masterstroke they needed to flip the game, and Dawson says, no, I'm really sorry. I want to win this final more than you.
I see your block and I'll raise you indeed.
Exactly.
Well, 3-2 to Brisbane. They'd really love this one to keep that little cushion. You don't want to let Sydney have a sneak back into the game, and that's a nice pull that lands just outside the end zone, putting Cook in a tricky space, and he's going to unleash it to McGuckin. It's Evans and McGuckin. He brings it down. He's got Kat Smith and Rosa Wang streaking in. That's exactly what the Brisbane Breakers needed. And what a score, what a throw from Elliot Cook.
Yeah, another great mammoth connection there for that deep shot. And Rosa Wang being in exactly the right place, using that speed, careening down the field, and in the end catches a pretty easy goal to make it 4-2 for Brisbane.
Yeah, here we see in replay, McGuckin getting good separation from Evans. It hung up in the air. McGuckin using his body brilliantly to box him out, and then giving a cool head enough to look off Kat Smith and thread it through to Wang.
Yeah, Evans definitely baiting Cook into that throw a little bit, giving McGuckin a little bit of space, and Cook says, look, I can throw like Tom Regacki as well if I need to. And calls the bluff to continue this poker analogy that I'd like to get out of now, please.
No, just ride it all the way home. You do know when to hold them, you know when to fold them though. It's maybe time to fold. As Tom Regacki and Sydney Suns look again to strike on offense. They've set up in a horizontal at the moment. That's some nice defense from Cook. But the release valve comes. Tom Regacki winding up.
And
Mark Wee.
Rosa Wang doing a very good job of dissuading some upfield shots here, but in the end, the dumping is very efficient from the Sydney Suns, and there it goes. A big floaty pass.
Whoa.
Out of bounds.
Well.
Yes, Wang there, like I said, was doing a very good job of just trying to force something a little bit different, a bit of unusual. You know, we talked with Kylie O'Brien, the coach, at the start of this game, and Sydney really wants to be in their groove. Well, whereas Yuang is all about chaos, creating that chaos, that doubt in the mind of the opposition. And he's done a very good job in that particular instance.
Yeah, you feel Brisbane are really on top here at the moment, and they need to ride this momentum with points, because if they let Sydney back into this set, it's going to be all over. Oof.
Jeez.
Swings that to Rosa Wang. She does a great job to help him out and keep it up.
Yeah, Wee gets a haircut on that one.
That's a call of a pick downfield.
With a little bit of congestion in the stack here. Brisbane probably thankful for a bit of a breather here. Get their breath and looking to potentially go 3 up in this third set.
Wow. Oh, you say thankful of a breather. That's a stall out. Oh, I was just going to say thankful of a breather, but it also disrupts the play.
Wow, and Weir regains her feet in time.
Oh, that's a heartbreaker for the Breakers.
Yes, very tough there. And, geez, Wang, after scoring a goal, a crucial one to go 2 up, just can't find an option. And you hate to see having the disc in the hands on that tee of 10.
Yeah, you just got the sense there that nothing much was happening that she liked. And that call, whatever it was, I think it was a pick downfield, just upset their rhythm enough.
And we talk about connections being so important. Wang, of course, on a line like that with so many Brisbane players, especially Brisbane players who she didn't play the regular season with, players like Zigman and Cook and Leask, probably just struggled to read the cuts there from all those players. There were opportunities and openings, but not the same ones that Wang was seeing, unfortunately. So, yeah, there's a flip side, of course, with the connections. If it's not consistent across the whole team, you potentially leave a couple of players out.
Well, with 3 minutes almost left in this set, you have to think that this is one of the big points of the set, if not the game.
Absolutely here, and time is critical at this point. Brisbane can score quickly. Sydney will need to get on the board.
A body check there between Grimmond and Evans. Evans going to call a foul.
And looking like an amicable but detailed conversation happening between the two players for sure. But smiles on both dials as the disc gets back in. Cheng gets it around, but not before a touch from Ashley Evans. And it's straight back to Cheng. Kat Smith going very deep.
Oh, Danny Alexander rather closing quickly there on Rachel Parsons, but she's got great hands to extend out to make that grab. Oh, Brisbane really churning now. They have to push hard. They have to work with their legs.
And Grimmond throwing a scuba there. That's a good sign for the Brisbane offense that he's throwing those relaxed, open passes. He's certainly a bit fired up after that bump from Evans.
Oh, puts it up to Lachlan Murphy.
That's fine, and Parsons knows exactly where Murphy is. It's opening up now. The pressure's building as we get closer to the end zone.
Grimmond. Oh, yes!
He is excited. Gets it between two Sydney Suns players, but Parsons waits it perfectly. Grimmond once again just spitting on the laws of physics.
And how was his form on the spike? It was a one-handed catch. I don't think he'd even touched the ground yet. Well, I won't make that comment. And he'd already spiked it down in one smooth motion.
He's the perfect combination of style and substance. I've said this before, Crossy, and I'll say it again. Bam.
Oh, love it. Yeah, he's making a statement there.
Now, time, I can't stress enough, this is going to be very exciting. Sydney are going to have to score, and they're going to have to score quickly. If this disc is not in the end zone by the time the hooter goes, or rather, if the disc is not released by the time the hooter goes, then it will be set to Brisbane, and we're going to go to a fourth.
48 seconds and counting to see what is going to happen with the fate of this second set. I'm not sure if Tom Brigacki needs to be told to get the disc out of his hand fast enough as he pumps it to Mark Wee. Alex Lees! Oh, he's having an absolute pearl of this game as he puts it out to what?
A an unbelievable grab from Wang in front of Zygmunt. Zygmunt has box seats, and now Brisbane.
They pump it up to Rosa Wang, but there's two Sydney players there, and there goes the hooter.
And that will be it. The game clock on the TV, not quite accurate, but nevertheless.
Oh, wow.
Brisbane, in a stunning and exciting last minute of the game, takes the third set.
Oh, Max Howden. They say pressure either cracks pipes or makes diamonds. We're seeing some absolute gems in this third set. This one, ladies and gentlemen, is going to 4. Is it going to go to 5? Well, what a comeback from the Brisbane Breakers, and we're going to take a break in this third set and see you in 5 minutes for the start of the fourth.
back here with the AUL Grand Final 2019. And folks, if you are just tuning in, it is a thriller in Leichhardt, Sydney. The weather has cleared up. It is a still clear night at Leichhardt Oval, and we are in uncharted territory, Sarah Crossy, in the 4th set of the AUL Grand Final.
Yes, indeed. And the curse of the 3rd set for the Sydney Suns continues. And the crowd, I think, are pretty happy about that right now. We have 1, maybe 2 sets left to find out who will be the 2019 AUL champions, and Brisbane doing everything that they can to make sure that it is them.
Yes, and now Brisbane in that last set finally found their feet. They were playing to their game plan defensively, creating chaos, causing havoc for that Sydney team, doing stuff that Sydney was not ready for, not expecting. Yuang and Tam Davis pulling out all the stops to keep this game alive.
Yeah, and I had a chat with, had a chat with the team. No, I listened into the team at that 3rd set break, and Yuang said that he really felt like they controlled the pace very well in that 3rd set. They were finally playing their game, was his words, and that they were playing with more trust than they ever had at any point through the season, and he really wanted them to bring that into the 4th set.
That's it, and you have to say Brisbane is stepping up to the moment at this time. Will Sydney be able to respond and maintain that composure we've seen so far?
Well, Sydney starting on offense.
Ladamatos is off. He's completely unmarked. Leiska's tripped over. It's not the start that Brisbane would have wanted, and now Ladamatos knocking on the door.
Danny Alexander racking up the stats. And Sydney have started off much different than they did in the 3rd set.
And that Leisk and Ladamatos matchup, we said that would be critical. We've seen it so many times tonight already. You know, Leisk and Ladamatos, especially Leisk on Ladamatos, plays a very physical style of defense. And it can be very high reward, but it can be very high risk. You see there, Ladamatos gets the better of the contact and ends up in an absolute acre of space. And Mark Evans is in no doubt to ever throw that. So.
Yeah, Leisk just losing his footing, which he's done a few times during this game, actually. And while this is a beautiful field, we have had a lot of rain in Sydney over the last 24 hours. And no sign of any standing water, but just a little bit greasy on the surface. And some indication of the outcome there as Brisbane looking to even it up in this early and crucial stages of this 4th set.
Cheng looking off Grimman there, but finding him on the inside. And he's got Meehan going deep. Doesn't see her. Gets it across to Murphy.
Wow, Grimman looks to be playing with a great deal of confidence out there. He's enjoying this, which is good to see, as Mark Wee hits the ground, which means that Braden Cheng is in an acre of space. What Wee would have loved to do.
Oh, wow. And Braden Cheng takes an unorthodox approach to scoring that.
Wowzers.
Looked
Fakes out the jump.
I don't think he knew he was going to get it until the last second either, but in the end ended up in the right spot at the right time, and that's a goal for Brisbane.
Well, at the end of the day, it's going to be 1 in the score column, and that's all that matters at 1 apiece. Gee, Mark Wee, he's got so much speed on him, and he did really well to close that gap quickly. The throw just sitting up a little bit.
Yes, and yeah, we unfortunately, he did so well to recover position quickly, but couldn't look at the disc at the same time, unfortunately, and that gave Braden just that the edge that he needed to get the goal. Wow, already an exciting 4th set. You can tell everything's on the line here, Crossy. The players are pulling out all the stops to make this happen.
Yeah, and Kat Smith with her signature spinning of the disc before she's going to unleash that pull.
And another great pull there. Been seen some really fantastic pulls tonight from the likes of Ragaki and from Smith. Evans in a bit of deep space here, but ends up coming back under. Scuba across to Reeve. We'll find Evans. Brisbane not having an answer for some of those powerful throwers from Sydney tonight.
Sits it up, but plenty of space as Danny Alexander just pumps that one deep.
Wow, and an uncharacteristic mistake. Not a lot of pressure on that throw, but it will give Brisbane a chance to potentially get the first break of this set.
Yeah, big point here for Brisbane. Starting to be a few tired players out there, I think, Max.
Yeah, well, we're already longer than any AUL game has gone so far this season. And you can't underestimate how challenging that 6-on-6 format is. You have to do a lot more work as an individual player, especially as a cutter upfield. Talking to David Andrews at the second set break, he was saying how surprised he was at the challenging nature of this game, especially in these cold conditions, making breathing potentially a little bit harder for these players.
Alex Lees calling it for it long, but Cook's going to hold it back and put it to Ziegman.
Oh, and you get a little bit of sense that Sydney's trying to find the block here, but McGuckin, a beautiful penetrating pass to Leask.
Oh, Lees puts up a throw. It's going to be just too far and too wide for Ziegman. If that was good defensive pressure there from Sydney.
And you know what comes with tired bodies, of course, Crossy, is tired minds. And
yeah, he just looked like he'd already made up his mind that he was going to put that one deep, and just pushing it out too far in front for Rebecca Ziegman to pull in. And Sydney once again, I think Latto is going to head in for the cut for Evans, but he swings it back out to Holly Reeve, and gee, she's been impressive tonight on the defensive and very settled on the disc, as well as who else but Alex Lees comes across.
Oh, and unfortunately, Alexander again just on the landing. And yeah, just looked like a bit of an unfortunate landing.
Yeah, I think maybe just a clip of feet there. We'll see it here as Lees comes across, makes the D, and it's just on the way down.
Yeah, got span around with that inside knee. Oh,
that's not what we want to see. And she's helped off the field. I just hope that that is just momentary ailment.
yes.
As Elliot Cook, ever the gentleman, finds her a seat on the sideline.
Now, the question will just be whether there is a call.
Doesn't look like there's going to be a call.
We will see.
They're very hard, these calls, I think.
Yeah, very challenging. And you look at something like that. I mean, we're playing a non-contact sport, and it is meant to be non-contact. You have to say that that contact did come, you know, it was quite light and it's an unfortunate landing.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just so hard to say. I think both players rightly probably have a call on either the call or on a contest.
And it's hard one for Alexander because she's really got no vision of what happens there, apart from at least coming in at the last moment as to whether or not that was a dangerous play or not. But it is resolved, and such a great level of spirit that this AUL has been played at, that it's a no call, and Brisbane are going to pick up the disc on the sideline there. About 20 metres out, they really need to slot this one in as Kat Smith cuts up the line. There's a pick. You'd think it didn't affect that play, and it will stay with her a few metres outside the end zone as McGuckin does the cheeky point back for the hammer.
Oh, and just amazing. Smith to her fused teammate Ziegman. Ziegman with just phenomenal speed in that front corner. And there you have it, Brisbane.
Yeah, 2-1 up as Alexander makes her way across the field to the other sideline. Let's hope that she's back on her feet. And in this format where there's only 12 players and 6 of each gender, having a person down can make a big impact, particularly in the legs as we get deeper into this game. As we watch Kat Smith there again, throw a nice little throw into the corner pocket to Ziegman for the score.
So what will Brisbane pull out defensively here? They need to keep that consistent pressure, but, you know, as we've talked about, their strategy is going to rely on causing chaos amongst the Sydney team. So what are they going to throw here to generate that? Let's see.
Well, I think what they did a nice job of in that third set was providing some help defense options, particularly for the women streaking long. So I'd expect to see a little bit more of the same. You can see Ava Muller, for example, and Kaya Weir playing quite a way behind her, forcing her in.
Wow.
As Sarah Wentworth bolts deep. Braden Cheng is providing that help, but there's nothing he can do about that one. As Tom Ragaki finds potentially his favourite target of them all, Sarah Wentworth, for the score.
Yeah, and I mean, you can't say that Brisbane didn't have a few sniffs. Some of the marks there, really exciting. Really putting a lot of pressure on some of our most elite throwers in Australia. And across the board, Sydney has so many great throwers. We watched Lachlan Murphy putting it all on the line on the mark. But in the end, I mean, how do you stop a throw like that, Crossy?
No, you can't. But Cheng, you know, he's doing a great job for his team in peeling off when those throws are going up. Just half a step earlier, and he has that D, you'd have to think.
And that's the margin we're talking about at this level. It's crazy to see you've seen Parsons and Cheng come so close to so many blocks. They've also got some phenomenal ones, but just that half step of difference that, you know, they're making elite decisions, but they just need to be doing them just ever so slightly quicker. And we haven't been able to see that consistency across the board from Brisbane to bring that defensive pressure all the way tonight.
Yeah, and you really feel this is fourth set. It's the big dance, and the pressure swings back onto the Breakers here. They had to work hard for that last point, and Sydney did it relatively easily, which is always that momentum swing of pressure back on as Ziegman is free in an acre of space.
She's still in that acre.
And finally, she's going to get the disc. As there's another pick up field, a few more of those creeping into the game. Again, probably a sign of some starting to be tired legs out there.
As it gets back across to Cook in the middle of the field, we'll find Wang using that speed so well in that lateral movement. Gets it across. She's a lefty, of course. And McGuckin can't find Ziegman. Gets it across to Wang. Reads it well.
Massive poacher. McGuckin, he's going to put it up. Ladder Mattis in the area.
Wow.
Whoa.
And
wow.
What we're going to need.
Well, I was going to call it as Ladder Mattis.
I'm speechless, Crossy.
But like out of the bottom of a NFL fumble pile,
wow.
McGuckin comes up with it, and
oh wow, it's going to be a Rorschach test, I think, of catching. If you're a Brisbane fan, you think that's a goal. If you're a Sydney fan,
oh gee, Rebecca Ziegman, tough as it comes.
Oh, love that.
Takes the hit, takes the disc, and takes the score.
Wow, and it is getting spicy here at Leichhardt Oval tonight. You can tell that the game is on the line. People are putting it all out there at the moment. And Brisbane with two phenomenal grabs to keep their finals hopes alive, Crossy.
Yeah, I'm loving this, and I'm sure the crowd here at Leichhardt Oval is as well. Oh gee.
Yeah, you can't help but think that everybody at home, depending on who you're going for, is seeing something different in that moment. And Sam McGuckin's maybe extra inches made a fingernail's difference, but
oh gee, and a big hit there at the end by Ash Evans.
But Ziegman takes it in her stride. Brisbane again, grim and absolutely hoofing it down, is going to be able to put pressure on this very first throw.
And the pressure swings back onto Sydney. It's the familiar connection of Ragaki to Wentworth. Puts the disc on that far sideline. Ragaki up the line. Weir's going deep.
He was always going to throw
Ragaki
that.
has no hesitation. Hits it cleanly. My goodness, he's having a good game.
There's a bit of a discussion here. It looked like a pick in the stack. It'd be interesting to see if this affected.
It's retracted. They're calling that a goal.
Great.
Yeah, I said he needed to have a good, clean game to put Sydney in the box seat, and that is exactly what he's having.
And nobody has been able to stop Regaki in that dump space, which has been so challenging for Brisbane. You've seen Lachlan Murphy try. You've seen Liam Grimman try. Two truly excellent defenders, but still nobody has been able to stop him from doing what he's wanted. And then when he gets the disc in that position, well, it's all over Red Rover.
Yeah, and that really becomes a pressure alleviator for the rest of the team too. You know, if you're stuck with the disc and you know that number 42 is your dump and he can get free at any time, it really alleviates that downfield pressure that they're applying. So very nice acquisition by the Sydney Suns in this off-season to pick up Tom Regaki, and he is very keen to get his back-to-back AUL title championships.
Absolutely. And I mean, you know, Brisbane's still in the box seat here, of course, receiving the disc now, have the chance to go 4-3 up in this crucial fourth set, but you can't underestimate how difficult it is to hold in this AUL final. So much pressure, the best defenders in the country.
Zeman going deep, Alexander chasing after her. Can she get there? Oh, it just dived on her. She probably needed to bid a little early, but that was asking a lot of her. And Sydney will pick up the disc.
In the hands of Ladamados. Fakes a big one, but sends her back to A. Evans, who's now over to Reeve. They're moving it very confidently, Sydney. It's looking pretty good here.
Yeah, Reeve again looking very comfortable and confident on that disc. Swings it across to Ladamados, to Alexander. Good to see her back on the field after that big hit. And they're now over halfway and playing the way that coach Kylie O'Brien and Owen Shepherd have talked about.
Brisbane needs to find something magical here. They're on the end zone line and they're looking like they're in their groove. We're getting to a high stall count though.
Yeah, great pressure applied. A Hope's put up. Wow! Ladamados brings out a spike of his own. Do you think he's fired up, Max?
Oh yes, I would say very confidently that he is. You don't often see that raw passion on the field from Ladamados, but you do tonight, and he is stoked. He can taste that AUL Grand Final victory with only 4 minutes to go, and the Suns up 1.
Yeah, you just felt that coming, didn't you? Although that was really a hope.
Yeah, and I mean, Brisbane needed something.
Lucy, can we get a new disc?
And it looks like Ladamados may have damaged the disc beyond repair at this point, but as is his wont. I must say one of my side hustles, Crossy, is as editor of the Inside Out Ultimate publication, ioultimate.com, if you want to check it out. And I did write
excellent contributors.
Yes, completely agree. And published a fine article by yourself on this website, but wrote an article about Ladamados this week on AUL, just about his amazing ability to control a game, to break hearts, Crossy. And you can't help but think potentially that is what he's done with that grab.
Yeah. Broken the disc, but also maybe broken the heart and spirit of the Breakers. We'll see what they're made of in this point, because if they don't score it, you have to say it's slipped through their fingers. They need to score this point and put the pressure right back on Sydney.
And you'd love to see Brisbane score this one just for the excitement that it's going to bring to that potential last point, but they have to do it first. Can't decide the narrative for them. Oh, Mueller looks off a streaming Grimman. Doesn't want to make the same mistake from the first set. Grimman cuts off Meehan, but ends up getting it.
Cheeky scuba. Braden Cheng is gone. Left Mark Wee behind, but Grimman not opting to take it as Lachlan Murphy lifts one up. Oh, gee! Oh, it would have been a spectacular grab there by Cheng.
Yeah, made it into the hands, but was a very challenging catch. Not too dissimilar from the one that he grabbed earlier in the game in that end zone, but just a little bit more challenging.
Well, has he just dropped the AUL championship? That is going to be the question we're going to have an answer to in just under 1 minute and 45-second time. Oh, it's an extraordinarily difficult grab to make.
Yes. Oh, wow. And Regaki on 0 gets a beautiful hammer over to Weir. Disc is in the middle of the field. Arvav's trying to find, but it's getting high, but it's back in the hands of Regaki.
Wee's got a couple of steps on Grimmond. Oh, that's fantastic defense by Grimmond and by Rachel Parsons.
I mean, you can't ask for a better combination when it comes to defense, can you?
Braden Cheng back up and going. Grimmond wants the disc in his hand. You love that about the big players.
Through to Murphy. Almost catches Cheng on the way through. It's back to Grimmond, back to Cheng. They're playing through those 3 at the moment.
Yeah, Mark Wee maybe just fatiguing a bit here as Cheng's getting open quite easily. Well, Grimmond putting his hand up, and cometh the hour, cometh the man! Liam Grimmond sets this up for a pearler of a finish. It's 4 apiece with 25 seconds to go.
And Crossy, what another unbelievable grab from Liam Grimmond. You thought Andrews maybe had position there, and Grimmond just picks his pocket in the air.
Wow, so impressive from number 33. Elevates up, left hand in the air. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I mean, both the two receivers have the width of 3 matchsticks, but just unbelievably exciting and athletic play from them.
Well, we've just heard the time cap go then. So what happens in this situation, Max?
If Sydney is able to score this point, they will win the 3rd set and win the match, securing the AUL Grand Final. But if Brisbane can hold them out, if they can get a crucial break here, then we will go to a 5th and unprecedented 5th set in this AUL final. This is the moments you come to Ultimate Frisbee Games for, Crossy.
Yes. Well, there's not one T. Regaki on the field to make the final throw for Sydney. They're going to have to do it with the other line. Not a bad line to go to. No,
and all Sydney, you know, they're all Sydney-siders. And if this line can't do it, then, you know, who can?
Well, here we go. Grimmond's back on. Kat Smith, Laramie, and Braden Cheng. Gets faked out by Ladamatis, but it doesn't come.
Yeah, Cheng's doing back-to-back duties on this point. They send him back on. They want him to shut down Ladamatis.
Parsons on there too. Here goes Grimmond on Evans. Well, they're about a third of the field or half a field away from a championship. But can they hold their nerve as Evans gets it back on the sideline?
Geez, the pressure on just watching this game, Crossy, is making me nervous as Evans. Oh, he's holding those discs up, you can tell. Although Reeve looks very composed as she throws a beautiful inside pass.
This is Sydney doing what they've done all season, just controlling the tempo, controlling the flow, and in the end, Mark Evans catches the goal, and the 2019 AUL champs are the Sydney Suns.
Wow. Congratulations to the Suns. Immaculately played game, and just that final point was exactly what we talked about, Crossy. No hucks, no spectacular plays, just excellent, consistent cutting and passing.
Yeah, what a game. All hats off to the Breakers. They looked done and dusted in that second set. I think it looked like it might be done in 3. They fought back, but in the end, it's the class of the Suns winning in the 4th set, 3-1 to take home their maiden championship.
Yeah, and you couldn't have asked for a better finale to just what was a fantastic AUL season. The quality still just keeps going up and up, which doesn't seem possible, but the athleticism that we saw on display tonight was just exactly what we saw all season. And Sydney, in the end, go completely undefeated, truly deserving winners of the title.
And that wraps us up for 2019 and another AUL season put to bed. Congratulations to the Sydney Suns. I'm Sarah Crossy.
And I'm Max Halden.
Good night.
One more.
I actually couldn't tell whether it was changed for
Later.
Suns,
Slightly on your side.
Suns, thanks for hosting. Thanks for being on an amazing night. We didn't have much to do. You certainly put on the show. We tried to take it set by set. Every day match. I think we put on a good show for the crowd. I think that's what this is all about. But well done, taking it undefeated. It's pretty amazing. Try and get you next year. Breakers. Thanks, Breakers. It was really fun to play you guys again tonight. The weather a bit better this time, so that was nice, and we had a bit more of a crowd, which was really cool. Great work all around. I just second that. I think you guys put on a really good show for the crowd. Again, look forward to playing you next year, with you next year. And
is that a trade?
Yeah.
It's not even done yet.
So Suns, 3 big cheers for our Breakers. Hip! Hip! Hip!